Welcome to another episode. Thank you for joining us. We are in the workshop, not working on the pedal car. I have had a delivery arrive from East Coast Castings with some Ranalah bits, which is very, very exciting. So I thought I would put together a little video to show you all the steps involved in making the new tool post stands. I've got 6 of them cast. At this point of filming, 3 of them are already sold, 4th one possibly. So I've got some left. If you want one, let me know. Drop me an email on the Ranalah website. They are £600. The amount of work involved in turning that expensive pallet of cast iron parts into actual working pieces is quite involved. We'll be using the mill, we'll be using the lathe, we'll be using the press. There's going to be a fair few processes going on. Everything needs to be quite precise. The first thing I needed to do is attach the big cast iron base to the mill. They have this big hole cast in the top, but that is undersized, so it's smaller than I need. There's a piece of steel tube that gets pressed into that hole, so I need to open out this hole ever so slightly, just so the tube is a nice press fit. That is the goal here. For that to happen, we've got a boring head for the mill, which is going to have a cutter that cuts around, but this needs to be fixed in place. Because it's such a rounded surface, there wasn't really any secure way. I couldn't think of a better way really, so all I've done is badly weld on some bits of box onto the side. And they seem to hold it quite securely. The next is to find the middle of this top piece. Importantly, not the middle of the hole, because in the casting process that could have moved off center ever so slightly, and I want to make sure that the steel pipe, the steel piece of tube that's getting pressed in there, is in the middle of the outside of this. So you're going to use the outside of the casting as a reference, and I'll use this little wobbly bit. You'll see that spinning, so this end bit is loose. You run that to the edge of the part, and as it gets to the edge, that wobbly bit, it centers itself, and then it goes ever so slightly off center, and that's where you know you're at the edge. Then I can use all of this gubbins to zero there, half it, find the middle, and do the same in both directions, so I know I've got dead on the middle of the outside of the casting. Hopefully you can see there where it started taking material off, kind of around this sort of area at the top, and where the hole isn't perfectly round yet, that area there that's sort of all textured, that's the rough casting is. So you can see it's touching at the top and then it suddenly opens out down there. That little step you can see where there's sort of rough texture and then next to the smooth surface inside the hole shows that it's not actually cutting all the way round yet, so it's not a completely round hole yet, it's just picking up on points here and there. As I adjust the tool I can push the cutter out, which cuts a little bit more material off every time. I have to be very, very careful because I don't want to cut too much material off. If I cut too much off, the hole will be too big, then the steel tube will be loose inside and the whole thing is ruined. I'll take very small bites and multiple passes just very slowly and keep measuring it every time to make sure that I'm just right, because the sort of tolerance between too big and too small is very, very small. Whilst that's going on, I'm going to come over to my apprentice, the donkey saw that I've got, and that is going to cut the steel tube to length. So I make these, usually I make them to 850 working height, like total height, it's 850 millimeters. That seems to work quite well for most people, but depending on what you're doing and what tooling you're putting in it, I can make them to any size you like within reason. This one is going to be 850 again, so I'm going to chop the end off with the saw to size and prepare the tube to be pressed in to the casting. Okay, we've got it. That's it. After a good couple of hours of gently munching away at this hole, it's there. I'm happy, I'm committing. I can't test it. It's not like I can actually get the tube and offer it up and try it because the tube is too long to fit under here. So I have to commit, move, unbolt this and move it, take it off the mill and then try, and fingers crossed it's the right size. I'm pretty confident it's okay. Okay, I'll get my spanners, lift this off, get it to the floor and roll it over to the press. And then let's see if we can actually press in the steel tube into the casting without cracking the casting. It's always a fear. It's like a 20 or 30 ton press and it takes nearly all of that to press these in. I've not done it yet. Touch wood, quick. But yeah, it's always a worry. that is 6 tons, 8 tons. Obviously, as more tube is pushed into the casting, the resistance gets greater and greater and greater. So as you get further and further in, it gets harder and harder to push it in. And I get more and more scared that the casting is just going to crack and give way. But it's in. There we go. Thank you to East Coast Castings for making such nice, strong, solid castings. It's a heavy lump. So I think we'll take an awful lot. Well, clearly more than 10 tons of pressure to break it. But that's good, it's in. I'll get it off the press and we can start looking at the insert, which is one of these. This now gets turned up on the lathe, up to that little step, that sticks out the top, and it's got a tapered square hole. So it's smaller at the bottom, bigger at the top. A taper is gonna get put onto that on the lathe. That one will get pressed into the top of the tube. And honestly, there is no way any of this is gonna come out. It is there forever. Okay, to the lathe. So I've got it in the chuck, held by the bit that I don't want to turn down. This is the bit that I need to turn down to the ID of the tube. It's quite difficult because this is a rough cast finish, but it's roughly. Now I'm going to just turn down this section to the ID and put a tiny little taper on it. Very, very minor taper. So it just locates itself into the tube, nice and square. That is all of the lathing finished. Let's get back over to the press. You know what, I shouldn't have taken it out of the press, I'm such an idiot. Let's put the thing back in the press and hopefully this top insert should just push in nicely and then it's done. Well, there we go, it's done. That's the primer. I need to now let that dry, sand that down, then it will get a coat of top coat, and then of course colour in with a little brush the all important Ranalah lettering. There's a huge amount of work involved. That's taken me the best part of the day. I know I've been filming it, which slows things down, maybe half a day, a good 4 or 5 hours I reckon. When you think these are £600, hopefully this shows there's hundreds of pounds worth of cast iron pieces from the foundry, and buying the steel tube, that's quite expensive, so there's really hardly anything in it for the amount of work that's involved. It's definitely not a financially viable business opportunity, but that's not what this is about. I'm so proud that these Ranalah products are going to be around for longer than me. So everybody that gets one of these, or the wheeling machines, they're exactly the same. They're going to outlive me, and it's quite a nice feeling to think that the things that I'm making now are made so nicely and all made in the UK and made by talented craftspeople. And who knows, in the future, in 100 years time, that may still be around in someone's workshop, still hopefully making panels and doing its job. That is what this whole Ranalah project is about. Just, you know, reviving this craft and keeping these things going for the future. Let me know any feedback in the comments, or of course if you want one. By the time this video comes out, if I've got any left, send me a message, let me know. It's now Sunday evening, about 7 o'clock, and I've got to drive to Chichester, 2 and a bit hours, and I'm knackered. Repair shop next week. I better get some sleep. Take care. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.